So this banjo is a 1941 Gibson Style 7 banjo. Most of the Gibson banjos from that era actually were built originally as 4-string banjos. The real rare ones, the real holy grail banjos from that era are the original 5-string flathead master tone banjos. That was the #1 choice for Earl Scruggs. He played a 1930 or 1932 Gibson Granada flathead banjo that had an original 5-string neck. Amazing deep sound that you could get out of these instruments, and it was always a dream of mine as a little kid to one day own one of these banjos. And I stumbled upon this banjo at George Green's shop in Nashville. It had already been converted. It was a 4-string banjo originally, but since the necks on these instruments are bolt on, bolt off, you could have a modern maker make a replica neck, and a guy named Robin Smith had built this neck for this banjo. This instrument was actually originally shipped to South Africa in 1941. A gentleman in Johannesburg found this banjo in a pawn shop in the 80s. I've always loved this banjo. It's a little bit different than some of the more famous flathead banjos of that era. This one it's called the top tension design. They came up with an idea, a design where you could actually tighten the head of the banjo from the top. This top tension design added maybe 25% of extra metal to the weight of the instrument, and so it's the heaviest banjo Gibson ever made. And people who bemoan the weight of like a heavy Les Paul have never picked up a Gibson top tension banjo. It's really out of control. But all that extra mass just kind of gives it a real huge sound, and it fills the room in a way that's kind of unlike other master tone banjos, and I find it effective for playing solo because it has such low end that's not typically associated with banjos. This banjo is kind of at the cornerstone of this record tonally, but it's a 1928 4-string Tricone plectrum guitar. So that means it's kind of has a long neck like a banjo, but is 4 strings and has 3 of the spun metal cones. They marketed that instrument, I think, to stubborn banjo players because at the end of the 20s, the banjo was fading out of popularity. There were apparently banjo players who were refusing to adapt, and they wanted an instrument that they could play like a banjo that sounded more like a guitar. So it's a completely bizarre instrument, but I picked it up and I could play it like a banjo, just like a banjo without a 5th string, and it has infinite reverb and amazing sustain to it, and it's such a cool ethereal sound. And I found somebody online who said that exact model, the 1928 Tricone plectrum guitar, that when it was introduced, it really served no musical purpose. And he went on to say that remains true to this day. And so when I saw that, I thought, I have to have it and I have to record with it. And I've started using it on lots of projects. I played that on a song called, a Josh Ritter song called Folk Bloodbath on the record, and then another song of mine called The Great Falls. And there's just no substitute for age, and I don't think it's that the metal has changed composition over the last 80 years. It's the fact that all of the various parts of this instrument have been together for 80 years or so, and they've become one unit, and they're vibrating in this kind of symbiotic relationship, and it has a connectedness that is hard to find in a newer instrument. So it's become a real passion of mine, learning as much as possible about them and collecting these instruments, and Reverb has made it that passion even more dangerous.